I've never been on live television before.
What's up, guys? Danielle here, neutralsupport.net. So today is just a little bit different than usual, and that is I got to do an interview with BikeGremlin. If you're not familiar with BikeGremlin, they're a YouTube channel that does all kinds of product reviews, bicycle-related topics, and other things. Be sure to check them out. Head over to their channel, subscribe, and this is just the highlights of that interview, but the entire thing where we get super distracted, talk about all kinds of topics that may not be related to bicycles or are, depending on how you look at it, that is over there on their channel. So if you want the whole thing, check it out. For now, I'm going to provide you with the highlights, and don't worry, I'll be back to my normal bicycle related content, all my tool reviews and other things soon. But for now, I hope you enjoy. Now we're professional.
Yeah, take 10. How do they then? Okay. I will just badmouth you for a few seconds now, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
I can take it. Okay, hang on to your seat. For those who don't know, Danielle runs a YouTube channel called Neutral Support. I will put in the video's descriptions all the links and everything relevant. And I personally love watching that channel. It is, you will please correct me if I'm wrong for something, but it is primarily aimed at mechanics, more professional than home, but for mechanics.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
that makes it, for me at least, special, because there are not many mechanics who are willing to share their knowledge and experience, and to do it in a way that's, at least to me, it looks like it's really honest, and how it really is, and it's educational and helpful, informative, and the way you present it is also very interesting to watch and clear to understand. There are many mechanics who are awesome, but when you try to get some information from them, even when they are willing to share it, they cannot communicate it. And Danielle's channel is Neutral Support, and website neutralsupport.net is really good.
Well, thank you. That wasn't bad at all, right?
Well, I did my worst.
Very complimentary. Yeah. No, and your channel is the same, right? You're doing a lot to educate people on how to do things, products, all that stuff, and it's from a very mechanical standpoint. So that's pretty cool.
It's aimed for the 12 and 15-year-old me, and someone else, if likes it, it's good, right? But that's the
as long
target
as you like it, that's all that matters, right?
yeah, basically. How did you start, and how did you figure out that you want to be a mechanic and fix bicycles?
So I'd say the writing was on the wall for a long time, but I didn't know it. So I grew up thinking that the only pathway to being an adult was you go to college, you go to school, you go to college, you get a real job, like everybody says. But in first grade, I brought a micrometer to school to show my friends how to measure the thickness of paper. So I was only like 5 or 6 years old. So I think for a while, it was kind of obvious that I liked tinkering with stuff. I was always fixing stuff or taking stuff apart. My parents really wanted me to end up doing something. They wanted me to know what I was going to do. And when I was 16, my dad said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I just don't know. I just want to have like tangible, hands-on type work. I don't want lofty idea type work. I really want like a skill that I can do stuff with and physically have a product as a result." And he said, "What is that?" And I said, "I don't know." I went to school. I got a job at a bike shop because I was putting together bikes for fun and going to shops, and I was just having a blast. And my boss at the time said, "Well, some people work in this industry for life. Other people are just passing through." And I literally, in the interview, he said that, and I told him, "I'm definitely just passing through." This is not what I'm going to do. I'm in school. I'm paying a lot of money to go to school. So I'm going to end up in some other job. But like, I really, this is just my school job. And then I had never left the industry that whole time. So
they let you get a taste, and then they got you hooked.
Yeah. And I had a really good mentor because I was a mechanic apprentice there. And he really took, like, I started as a salesperson. They actually only hired me because I was a woman, really, because they wanted a female sales representative. And then I just buried myself in the back and had a really nice mechanic who'd been doing it for a bunch of years. And he just let me ask all the dumb questions I wanted anytime. So that's kind of
Cool.
where it started, or where it ended up anyway.
Cool. Did you work for many years in that shop, and do you run your own shop now? Or
So I worked in that shop for a few years. And then when I was going to graduate from college, because it was right next to the school, I actually decided I got an opportunity to start my own business. And I told the owner of the shop that I worked at that I was going to do it. And he was very nice and said that I could work at the shop until I was started. And so I worked at the shop till I started my own business. I actually started as a mobile business only, and then ended up doing that for many years. But that was sort of the impetus of my own business. And that kind of grew from mobile to a hybrid model where I actually had a brick and mortar shop in the town that I was from, and I was running the mobile and the brick and mortar. And I actually ended up moving, so I sold that shop. But that was kind of 10 years of my life was just running that and going, just 100 miles an hour for that whole time.
I can see from some of your tool discussing and explaining that you must have been doing a lot of remote work or mobile, as you said. So it all makes sense now, and it is
Yeah.
an important aspect, and it's cool that you have that experience too.
It's funny because I think it was a nice hybrid because I was working so many, and sorry, my shop cat is very interested in what we're doing.
It's cool.
I was working on the road a lot, but I was also working events. So basically, for the first couple years, every weekend I was at an event, and all during the week I was working. And so it's just like nonstop bicycle work all the time, like basically just repair. Because as a mobile business at that time, it was very hard to get accounts. It was really hard to sell anything. So it was mostly just every single dollar was something that you did with your hands. Like you put in a ship cable, you get paid, that kind of stuff. And it was very transactional, and it was awesome, but it was a lot of work doing it that way. It's a lot better now, and I've been excited to sort of help develop and monitor how they're making it easier for mobile mechanics with accounts and selling things and fulfillment and all that stuff. So
Cool. In Serbia, it's still impossible to get insurance or anything as a mobile, and it's still a way to go. But it's a different country. It's small city where I am, and so there's no really everything is 15-minute bicycle ride. So
that's really cool.
What I wanted to ask you, what you already mentioned about them, the shop you worked at wanting a female employee.
Yes.
What is it like to, for example, just an introduction? In my country, I have never seen a woman mechanic. Never ever in my life, not even once, wherever I went. So it's not something that you usually see. And so I'm interested to hear what it is like for you as a woman to work as a mechanic. And is it any different? Do you have some problems, or how motivational speakers say challenges related to that?
So I think it is a challenge. The women make up about 8% of bicycle mechanics, so not very many at all in the United States, still more than they used to. But the women in the bicycle industry has always been a challenge because it's such a sort of male dominated sport and a male dominated industry. And a lot of society takes what men say more seriously because there's always been sort of a overarching idea that men went into the serious industries and women stayed home. And that's kind of stuck, even though that's not true basically at all. And I had I have lots of like backstories about, every time that I was working an event or working at the shop with a man near me in any capacity, it was always like they gravitated directly to them for anything. So I'd have people that I was checking out after I'd done all the work on their bike, and they'd say, well, can I speak to the mechanic? And I'd say, well, I'm the mechanic that worked on your bike. And they like had to take a minute and sort of adjust. I was dropping off a bike because I used to do pickup and drop off if it was going to be more serious. And I'd did all the work, I was running the show, right? So I did all the work. I brought it back. The guy told me how much he appreciated it, told me that the bike was great, how our service was great, all that stuff. And as I was walking back down the driveway back to the car, he said, "Thank your husband for me." And at that time, my husband was completely different industry, didn't work with me at all. And so I got home and I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that one of my customers told me to thank you." And I assume that that's because you let me do my job or something like that.
So. Let you go out of the kitchen.
Yeah, he let me leave the house that day. It was so nice of him.
Yeah,
but I think I don't, that wasn't even malicious, right? That wasn't. It's completely honest. He was very appreciative. He was a happy guy about his bike and all that stuff. But it's just a weird, it just sticks in the brain all the time.
It makes it even funnier that it wasn't intentionally rude.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to be mean or anything. He was just literally very appreciative to who he assumed was my husband doing all the work. So
I know what it's like in Europe, but I have no idea what it's like in the United States for shops and customers. For example, in my city, it's like the Serbian Amsterdam on core Copenhagen. Everyone goes everywhere by bicycles, and it's the main means of transport. And most people that come to bike shops need their bicycles just to be rideable. City bicycles, usually often with only one speed and in a very neglected state, just as a means of transport that is expected to be cheap and to just run. Not much high-end sports stuff. Is that different in the United States?
So it depends where you are in the United States. So if you look at the United States on a map, it's huge.
Yes.
And part of that is that the land masses are almost so different depending on where you are in the country, and the communities are so different that it is very similar to traveling across different countries, other places. So you get areas where people only use bikes for transportation. You get areas where people barely use bikes for anything. They just think that they're a toy for kids. And then you get sort of this mix in between where you get a high concentration of sort of upper tier economic situations. And those people tend to be people who buy, $6,000 to $10,000 bikes, and they ride them just for fun on the weekends. And so we have a decent mix. So it just kind of depends where you're at. And there's a big gap from the very, very inexpensive bikes from the internet or from a department store to the people buying kind of the same bikes that you see on TV. So
how do you handle the high-end bicycles, all the electronics, the hydraulics and everything? It requires a lot of different areas of expertise now, and I know for some shops that they have different mechanics for different areas of expertise because it's very difficult for one person to get it all and to do it all.
Yeah, so I think one of my biggest pieces of advice that I always gave people is don't be afraid to only do what you can do. Right. So there are bike shops that were nearby to mine because I don't currently have a bicycle shop officially. I don't operate one anymore after I moved. It's been a couple years. But there were shops near me who didn't do everything. Right. They were very good at what they did, and they only focused on what they did, and they survived. And I think you don't really get into trouble until you start doing things you don't know how to do. And that's not to say that you shouldn't try to learn, right? Anybody can learn how to do anything. You can pursue education, you can practice, all of that stuff. That's how mechanics learn, especially in this industry. I'm not sure if it is true by you, but by us, there really aren't a lot of places to go for official bicycle education.
Yes, yes.
I used to be a big part of the Professional Bicycle Mechanics Association that was fighting pretty hard to get some level of even playing field where we could define professional bicycle mechanic versus home mechanic, so that there was some level of a customer could walk in and say, here's a person who knows what they're doing, similar to cars. That organization didn't quite make it. There's a lot of sort of backroom, not deals necessarily, but sort of backroom influencing that large companies do. that really focuses hard on everything else, but tends to put down anything that is about mechanics.
Making it closed just for their service, their parts.
Yeah. So they want to be, you can be a Trek certified mechanic, or you can be, this certified or that certified, but they didn't ever respond well to there being sort of a universal certification that everybody could agree on, which is in every other industry that's a professional industry, but not really ours.
Without the structured education and training, a person, me for start, can have gaps in knowledge that they are not aware of, and they don't know when that's going to bite them in the back, so to say, and to make the job be bad without even realizing they did a bad job until something happens on a bicycle or breaks. That's, in my opinion, a big problem of the lack of those levels of structured education, so that you know what you know and what you don't know, even more importantly, and that customers and mechanic shop owners know who they are working with. With bicycle mechanics, it's very hit and miss.
Yeah. And I think that is still a challenge in the industry, and I'm hoping that we continue to fix it. And that was kind of part of my desire with starting a YouTube channel, was just to, like, I looked at the content that was available online, and it was all geared towards consumers mainly, or like, here's a hack to get you to do something really quickly that wasn't even the right way to do it. And I just didn't find a lot of content for me. Right. So you said you're making your videos for you as a 15-year-old, and I'm making videos that like I wanted to find and watch and be interested in instead, because I really think that it's an underserved category of people who understand how bikes work already. They don't need you to necessarily go all the way back and simplify the language and all that stuff. And like, I go into depth maybe more than I need to on some stuff, but I think that's also because without the formalized training, you have no idea where mechanics are coming from.
Exactly. I love how you do it. It's not too long to be, how do I say, tedious. It's just long to explain everything, and you can always fast forward and skip if you find something that you don't need to listen to. So, and I love those inserts that you make in your videos. That are always funny. That's awesome, really. And as far as I'm concerned, never stop making those.
That's just to distract you, right?
It's cool.
Distract you. When you get tired of listening to me, here's something to look at for a second, right?
It's cool. What I wanted to ask you about the tool picker on the neutralsupport.net website. Did you design it, and why is it awesome, and why everyone should subscribe to that service? I get 10%.
It is awesome. Yeah, I'll give you a kickback. I'll give you an affiliate link that you can put below. So that actually, it's funny, the tool finder was actually first. So I didn't make any videos or anything like that until after I had already spent like hours and hours and hours and hours making the tool finder. And it was born because I needed a tool, and the one that I needed from the one I knew about, right? The company I knew that made one didn't have one, COVID times, all that stuff. And I was like, I wish there was a way that I could just like search for all the companies that make that type of tool. And so I ended up creating this database that categorizes all the tools into what they're for by brand and by type, so that you can search it. And to do that, I'm not a computer programmer. So to do that, I mostly just scraped the internet. So went to the companies that I knew made tools, grabbed their catalog, added their entire catalog to the tool finder, built the website. Like, I'm sure an actual programmer would look at it and think it's a nightmare in the backside. But I tried to make it as easy to use on the front side as possible as I could in my understanding, because that's so far outside of my expertise. But the expertise side came in that I could find the tools. And then as I find new companies and new tools, I try to make sure to add them to the tool finder as well. And then it's cool because as a member, when you use the tool finder, you actually have a profile that you can save tools that you find in the tool finder to a list under your profile. So you can say like, oh, I want to build out a kit and you can select all the tools that you want and put it in your list. And then if you're done with it, you can actually just remove it from your list. So it's kind of neat because you can find new stuff. You can create a list of stuff that you want in the future and kind of save it to your profile on the site. So it's like a neat little thing, right? And it took a lot of work and a lot of time to build, but I'm like excited that it exists. And I constantly think of more things that it could do. They just also would take a lot of work. So I don't know, maybe in the future it'll do more things, but right now it just tries to help you find a tool when you can't find one by a certain company.
It's like the amount of work you put into it, like those people in the past centuries that were creating the first encyclopedias, like gathering all the information and sorting it in a systematic way and helping people find it. And
it
it's
did feel
admirable.
probably like that. Like, I don't think I'll give a shout out to a company that doesn't give me any money, right? Junior.
Okay.
Junior's bicycle tool catalog. In America, in the United States, we don't have Junior as much, I think, as European countries do. And so we got like Park Tool and Pedro's and, you know, a lot of companies that are here, but Junior is on the lower side of that. Their bicycle catalog is gigantic. It is like the most bicycle tools it was bigger than the Park catalog. It's bigger than any of the tool companies' catalogs just for bicycle. And I didn't even know that at all until I had to scrape the whole thing and put it on the database.
I had the pleasure of translating it to my native. So
you know how long it is then. It is massive. It's a huge catalog. And they have some cool stuff, right? They have stuff that's not just the typical bike tools either. They have some stuff like a crank, like if you strip your threads out of
or the crank pull or the angled one, yeah.
Yeah, like this, the angled one that saves it. Like that's something that not a lot of I don't know of another company. There's probably at least one, maybe VAR or somebody made one, but I don't know of another company currently making one, and I wouldn't have found that if I didn't read through their entire catalog.
Yeah, so you are informed. I wanted to relate it to tools, to also bother you and ask you about the tool reviews that you do.
Sure.
I'm considering making a separate video discussing tool reviews as a topic. I'm not sure if it would help anyone, but I have problems with reliability, and your reviews really are reliable and, in my opinion, trustworthy because you talk about tools that you have used, and that's the experience that you're sharing, that you have really used in practice. And so my question is, how do you deal with companies? Do you have some deadlines that you must satisfy? Are they willing to send you tools without any guarantees for praising them? And how does that work in terms of what you are at liberty to discuss publicly, of course?
Sure. I have no contracts with anybody. Most of the tools, I get tools given to me quite a bit just to review them. I try to borrow tools instead of keeping them when I can, just because I feel like that's like some of the more expensive stuff, especially like I don't need to amass a bunch of different versions of the same thing. I feel like that's kind of wasteful sometimes. So at minimum, like things like the Remco stand, they gave me, I gave them some. The Remco stand, they let me use the stand. I still have it. They let me use it for a period of time, and they're developing some stuff, so they had me keep it, but it's not mine, right? So it'll go back to them when I'm done, and that's fine because I already have stands. And
that's awesome.
I'm fine with those arrangements, and I have had companies give me things that they wanted me to review that I didn't review because I didn't like them very much. I left them off of reviews, or I casually sidestepped and reviewed something else that they sent, but not the other things. I've had a few companies ask to see the video before I put it up, but I don't generally I let them know when I put it up, but I don't let them see it ahead of time. And I've had companies never give me anything again. Um, I won't say what those are,
Okay,
but
yeah,
I,
it's
I
it's
don't consider a free tool to be a positive review buyer,
yes,
right?
it's more energy efficient to just discuss the tools that are generally good and worth talking about, and to disregard the others.
Correct. Yeah. And so I don't seek out tools that I don't want to tell people about. I try to only talk about tools that I like in general. Occasionally I get tools that I like well enough to talk about, but I don't like certain things about them. And occasionally that gets me into trouble.
Yeah, but that makes it only worthwhile. If you don't do that, it's not good. It makes no sense to make tool reviews without mentioning
Right.
those things.
The impetus for the name neutral support, because I was
Yes.
working a lot of events where I wasn't really getting paid to be there and stuff like that. I was just there as neutral support actually. And I ended up naming this channel and the website and everything neutral support because I wanted it to be like, this is just a person, not the company, not affiliated with anybody, telling you the information, trying to give you the best information possible. Like, I'm not
Uh,
behind any racer here. I'm helping everybody,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Love that a sort of a game of words that you chose.
Yes.
It's great. It's great. I don't have any more questions without making it last for longer than the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So
Which one?
all of them combined. And so if you have any questions or anything else that you wish to add or correct or say anything, now is the time.
I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to just have a chat and kind of get to know I like getting to know you also. I know that we've interacted on the internet a little bit, but not too much. And it's kind of exciting to have the opportunity to just talk about,
Yeah, across the
how
whole
things come
ocean.
back. Yeah, that's
It's
cool.
it's a good
So
way to use technology.
yeah. So I appreciate it. And I think this is pretty cool. And feel free to cut any of the excess stuff where we rambled on that
I
didn't
will
make sense.
send you the raw material. You can do whatever you want with it, and I will try to make the edit to be not too long.
Yeah, that
And
sounds good.
so, yeah, I hope it will be at least informative for people watching it. So, and I hope they will, those who don't know, will know about neutral support now.
I hope so. I appreciate it. And here too, like, Bike Gremlin's doing just fine. And you guys are doing great, but maybe we'll get a couple more people over your way too.
Who knows? Who knows? Thank you very much. And I really enjoyed it. And it was very nice talking to you.
Thank you.